Hi, everybody. Good evening and welcome to EduTALK. EduTALK, as you know, is a weekly virtual talk show created out of the need for a global learning community. And we focus on topics in education that directly impact Caribbean nationals and diaspora people working across the globe. EduTALK, we feature quite a bit of people, and most of the time, Dr. Barker and myself here are going through some of the things that we're still learning and grappling with, even if we have some high level of knowledge about. We want to try to find out if these things really work across the globe as well as back home in our Caribbean islands, and see if teachers and administrators can put these things into perspective. So welcome to EduTalk, everybody. We're very happy to have you here.
Yeah, welcome to EduTALK, and Dr. Dyce, as usual, happy to have these discussions about these kind of topics. So what are we talking about today?
Yes, good question. The idea of Caribbean American Heritage Month, and I really didn't want to put the American in there, but because they're signed off on it, it's Caribbean American Heritage Month. And as you know, we celebrate Caribbean-ness almost every waking hour of our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to have the month of June to celebrate Caribbean American heritage, it's to look at our heritage in general and see what we contribute to other cultures across the globe. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, Barra, one of the things I thought of, and I'm sure you're thinking about this too, and have thought about it, is growing up in the Caribbean, specifically Jamaica, and the values that we have learned in Jamaica and carry over with us to you in Great Britain and me in America, and still living by a lot of those values, even in our
Yeah.
professional lives. One of the things people take the idea of sitting down and planning and look at time management and family, spending time with family, especially on a Sunday, or
Yeah.
they take that for granted. Where
Yeah.
as young people know, they don't really do that so much. They're like, okay, I'm gonna spend time with my friends. With my
Yeah.
friends. It's all about friends. And your family is like, but we're gonna visit grandma. Are you coming? No, I already have plans to spend the weekend with so and so. So why don't you guys just go ahead and just say hi to her for me? You know?
Yeah.
And we're looking at it like, is this what you're supposed to be doing, or you should run behind us, you know? And should we reprimand you, or should we just let you grow up? So that's one of the things I look at as value for the heritage value coming from the Caribbean. We don't do that. We're always hanging around family, especially on a weekend, right?
So true. So true. So true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other one, and we can talk about that too, because it's really create a problem with, maybe I'm getting older with the generation gap. But I'm trying to talk to you with my daughter about it too. It's to see what you can do to spend time more with your family so that a lot of the values can pass on to you from us and from even your grandparents. And in her case, she has her great grandparents around still. God bless their soul and keep them alive for a little bit longer. So that's it. No, this is really familiar to us, is the idea of hard work and what
Yeah.
we classify as hard work in the Caribbean. And when you
Yeah.
come to foreign, people will say, well, why are you doing so much? You know, like you guys are accustomed to hard work. Do you ever define what they're talking about in terms of what is classified as hard work for a British national or American compared to the Caribbean people?
Well, I think the societies are set up differently. So, you know, so one of the things I found when I moved to the UK was what was apparent that there was a clear working class.
Yeah,
While I think it was not apparent to me before, but there is a clear working class set up in the UK, very much a class system where there is a genuine belief that exists in large parts of the population that social mobility is not an aspiration that they should have. The way it works is if you are a working class, then the way that you think the goals you set for yourself are working class goals.
Mm.
So I remember when I started in 2002, I came to the UK and I was sitting in a class. I had my class, and when I finally settled with the class, because obviously the behavior in many of these schools are quite tough, but eventually I established some form of order. And I remember trying to get to know my tutor group. That's what they call them, right?
Yeah.
So I was trying to get to know my tutor group. And one of the things that I remember doing while in Jamaica was, when you're talking to your group, you tend to ask them to introduce themselves and then maybe say, what do you want to be when you
Yeah.
grow up? So the context of my school is that it is in what you call an estate.
Mm-hmm.
And its catchment is really from the estate. And an estate in the UK refers to all an area that is normally a, it's normally street people who are on benefits or some form of government support.
Oh,
And in order to live in these, in the US, they maybe call them projects.
projects. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, yeah.
Kind of close in that regard. So the school that is nearest to it would be the catchment. And so what you're going to find is most of the people have a mindset of the same. Now, where it differs from America, everyone has the American dream, but there's no UK dream. The UK dream doesn't exist like that. There's no UK dream. Not like that at all.
Yeah.
Not as a thing, as our Americans would believe that no matter where you come from, you could be the president, you could be this. And whether their actions match, that is a whole different thing.
It's another story.
I
Yeah.
remember my meeting with my class, my group, my tutor group, and I said, introduce yourself, tell me what you'd like to be when you grow up. And I was juxtaposing that with having that same conversation with groups of students in worse conditions in Jamaica. Because there's a Jamaican dream.
Right.
Would hear people say, in Jamaica, kids would be like, want to be doctor, want to be lawyer, want to
Police
be
officer.
police
Yeah.
officer, fireman, blah, blah.
Yeah.
They choose careers that
Yeah.
clearly were aspirational to where they are,
Yeah.
right? So you choose stuff. And for the most part, you'd find that everybody aiming and trying to outshine. Obviously, you have the one kid who is trying to be funny who will say something like Obiamana or something. But for the most part, kids would choose professions, like what we call traditional kind of professions. So that says, I want to elevate myself from where I am to be something different. And I remember doing this exercise in the UK. And when the kids start to speak, I think the highest aspiration a child had in my class was to be, I think, when I say fireman, everyone wanted to be bricklayer.
What?
They work in supermarkets. They want to be plumber. They want to be electrician. That's literally, I'm looking across the room
Mm-hmm.
and I don't remember a kid even saying they want to be, it's almost like nurse or teacher. It was like fireman was maybe like the highest they were
Yeah.
aspiring to be. So it really then made me realize that there's a clear working class, but also an acceptance that there's a
Mm.
certain jobs that you don't aspire for unless you were middle class, then you aim for those jobs. And yeah, that was apparent to me. And I
I
shared
never
a lived experience on that one.
never saw that coming, honestly.
I
But you
suppose to answer your question around hard work and
yeah.
means, I think the point I'm trying to make is that that is still constrained within the classes in the UK in terms of what that looks like and what that means
Right, right.
in those settings.
That's really, really fascinating to learn because that's it, it really answered the question in other words, based on the setting, wherever it is, and to find out how we define hard work, which is similar to what you're referring to with the students, where they classify that within their class system, that this is the work. They have to put in a lot of work here to become this thing. That's what I'm going to be. And that's the limit. That's the limit for me based on my class. And
Yeah.
it's similar to what you have here, where I grew up in the farming community in Jamaica. We looked upon ourselves as, okay, we're going to plant the biggest piece of cabbage or the biggest piece of yam. When you grow older, you're going to buy your truck. You're going to maybe buy supplies, grown provisions from other people, and you're going to take them to the market and you're going to sell them, and you're going to build your big house on the side of the road, not too far from there, but there's no outward look of, okay, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna be an astronaut. I'm gonna study chemical engineering or mechanical engineer or some form of engineering, space, and so on, to or medicine, to find out exactly if there's a cure for cancer in one of these sourshops that I'm eating off the farm. No,
Yeah.
there wasn't anything major to that other than selling these things and replanting them the next year. So I get what you're saying, where depending on where you grow. Because
If
one of
you're in that mindset, then you don't the typical Jamaican child is aware that social mobility is possible,
yeah.
even if they might even decide not to. But there's a kind of mantra within the system that says if you work hard
Mm-hmm.
and do, you might be able to break the social barriers that exist in terms of society, in terms of careers and so on. I fundamentally believe that there is a whole set of people, groups within the UK that doesn't believe in that and
Yeah.
have no interest in breaking that. They're happy to just be within that setting. And it's not because they're like lazy. It's just the way how the information gets to them. So I can give you another example. I remember in 2006,
Hold
I was
on. Are
teaching.
these people in the UK, they're immigrants?
No, these are British. British.
British
Immigrants don't
national.
hold that view.
All right.
Immigrants are socially, they are fully aware that you can climb through the system. Because
Okay.
you have to remember that depending on the immigrant, if I am there, I'm already educated.
Yeah.
So I am looking to go through the system. If I come here as a refugee, I'm trying to get settled. I might be educated, but I'm a refugee at the moment, right?
Yeah.
So immigrants don't hold that kind of social. It is something that is fed in its own way to the people to keep the working class the working class. So a classic example is one
Yeah.
where I was teaching a class and I remember talking to this girl in the class about, she was really good in math. And so one day, they're working some problems. And I'm walking around the class and listening to the conversations they're having amongst themselves, right? So they're working through some maths problems. And she was really good. I had a great belief that she would have gotten a B or an A B for sure, or an A if it's good enough for her in terms of the paper, the questions are predictable enough for her. But
Mm.
certainly a B, which was a good grade in math in the UK. And I remember hearing her talking to her friends and saying what she was going to do next year, which was like sixth form kind of thing. And she was saying, no, she doesn't want to go to sixth form, trying to go to college. And she was going to do something called a BTech, like one of those vocational type
Right. Right.
courses,
Right.
and something in maybe hairdressing or something. And this was not even, say, a person of color. It was just a typical British kid, Caucasian and so on. And I said, I overheard the conversation. I said, really? I mean, I thought you would have been a good candidate for sixth form, to go and do math and so on. And she was like, yeah, but, and I said, yeah, maybe use that and then going off to university. I was trying to give her that
Right.
aspiration.
Right. Yeah.
Like, yeah, but my parents can't afford it. That's what she said to me. Her parents wouldn't be able to afford it. So she need to get into something quickly so she can get a job quickly.
Make some money. Yeah.
Yeah. So I said to her, to be honest, if I was your age, and given my experience of the world, I'd say I wouldn't focus so much about what my parents can afford. I'll aim for the highest possible. And then when we get to that point, I think your parents might be willing to
Exactly.
help, right? This is a motivational speech per
Okay.
se, just to get her to focus on getting yourself, A levels, which is much more of a social climbing decision than to stay within the working class of being. And, she could have turned out to be a very successful business person over time or whatever. But you naturally aim for the highest, and then if something doesn't
Yeah.
work out, you go in that direction, right?
Right,
And
right.
she wasn't making that decision to say, I want to set up a business and blah, blah, blah. She was really just making a decision based on her knowledge of the world. Anyway, parents even comes around, and I'm really happy to meet this family because I'm thinking this kid, one of my best students, ready to talk. So I'm talking to the parents, and dad and mom is there, and I'm talking to dad was very responsive, and I'm giving very. Mom seemed very upset, like just not talking, almost in a huff. So anyway, I'm thinking maybe it's a bad evening. I'm not thinking about it. So this is not one of my problem conversations. It's a kid
Yeah.
I can talk about all day, her
Right.
potential, where she can go. So when I finish speaking, I think we normally have like a 5 minute or 5 to 10 minute conversation. And mom looked at me and she said, oh, and one thing I just want to ask you, yeah? She said, uh, um, so-and-so came home and she was talking about going to university because you're telling her to go to university. I said, are you going to pay for it?
What?
That's what she said to me. So I said, you know, she said, you know, who are you to be telling her to do that? Are you going to pay for it?
Oh my goodness.
And she was upset.
Oh,
Like I'm telling her daughter to go to do A levels when she wants her to just be getting something quickly and get out of the house. And are you going to pay for it? Who's going to pay for it?
wow.
The most interesting thing is that had she given her situation, in terms of her the family's maybe income or lack thereof and the
Yeah.
benefits that on, she maybe would have qualified for free university. You know
Scholarship.
what I mean? She maybe would have. I mean, with
So,
enough motivation, she would have,
mhm. So you
because
kept in touch?
no, no, not at all. I mean, you don't, not with kids, you'd get yourself in trouble, right? It's
Where
not the kind of thing that you could show that kind of support. Otherwise, you get into all kind of problems. So it was just one of those things that you realize that you're not, you're, they talk about the crab in the barrel kind of mentality. The crabs in the barrel are pulling the crabs in the barrel
yeah,
back.
yeah.
No one's going, you go, then I go on top, and then we'll figure out a way to get the last five out. Everyone's stopping each other. And the system is allowed to perpetuate because the people within the system do everything in their power to keep the system.
Yeah.
So in her pronouncement to me, she's clearly advocating, clearly communicating to me that we don't escape from this, and my child doesn't either. We all are going to be working class, and I am here um, to let you know that. And as I said, it's just knowledge, right? It's more a matter of knowledge, and they don't know that the system has supports in the system for her to get to university.
Yeah.
They don't know this because they're not connected enough to the system, even though the policies exist and the support exists. She doesn't know. She thinks her child going to university is going to cost so much that why would I send her, even if she has the ability?
Yeah.
So
That's really strange. It begs the question that it's not even for people who are living in a country to who doesn't understand how the host country works, but even with immigrants coming over, they don't know what how to tap into resources. So they will come. And even the people who live in the country, there's a certain type
the
of
immigrant cannot benefit from the system until
no,
they citizens, right?
right, right.
So the immigrant is already of the mindset that we'll do our best, get ourselves educated, and move through the system and climb our ladder, right?
Yeah,
Because we're coming in. I mean, when I came to the UK, I came in, educated and educated for a Black person, right?
yeah,
In
yeah,
this, when you worked in the schools, you didn't see a lot of Black people working in the schools, and certainly not teaching subjects, certain, not being involved, not becoming, and it still is a thing. The other day I was looking at a statistics for the number of, a piece of statistic on the number of
colored,
in the UK that are Black,
yeah.
right? And I think, I'm going to say it's something like 2.3%. And of that, I think 0.8 were male who were head teachers in the UK. Yeah. And when I say Black, I mean Caribbean and so on, because
Yeah,
that number increases to about 15% once you include like Indians and, that kind of,
yeah,
because
yeah.
those are
Black
socially
brown.
mobile and
Yeah.
have the support to be socially mobile as well. But so, you know, immigrants, when you come in those times, you still were one of, you're obviously one of. But
Yeah.
you do have aspirations compared to, so, when you're in those schools, the biggest thing was aspirations, 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 because people just didn't have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the schools I worked in, which were serving, Caucasian, British, um, they call them underserved communities.
Yeah.
These are people who, teenage pregnancy would have been a key part, drug use,
Yeah. Yeah.
those kind of things. So you end up with the kids and coming into school, some of them, I remember I started a breakfast club in my school because we needed to get the kids in and get them ready for school. And many of them would be coming into school without breakfast. So we used to have toast and hot chocolate each morning for them just to get them in and use that 20 minutes while they're eating to practice some math. Little
Yeah.
ideas like those we would do.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, until you come into these kind of settings, there's a whole socio-economic piece that is hard to understand until you live in it. So yeah,
Yeah.
Harvard is different, right? For
But
them, it was,
that's a value, the value system that we're referring to is how you take that and the hard work that we grew up under and to be resourceful. And when you get to a point in the host country, you start using those skills and put it in place to increase the access for those low income and less fortunate community people. Like in America, it would be the projects. Like we normally start like clubs, certain types of clubs among students in schools when I was in public school. So in
yeah,
Florida, you start the clubs and these students are African American students and students who are Afro-Caribbean heritage
yeah,
coming in, and even Hispanic students too, who are the schools are pulling from these different communities. And you really need to have people who one who probably experience the same problems when they were growing up in order to become useful and resourceful to these communities, or two, that they have some experience outside of their growing up. They have some experience dealing with these types of communities so that they can put resources in together to meet their needs.
yeah,
But
yeah.
the thing that you brought up though, Miguel, is the fact that with that girl, with the parents who ask you if you would pay for the school fee, the university fee, it 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 really points to a deeper underlying factor that they're not gonna break through until the next generation see through that dark cloud
Yeah,
beyond.
yeah, you're right. I think the way the system is, though, UK just has a very class structure. Immigrants can break it easily because we don't see it. And when we came from countries that says you can. So we end up can aspire for certain things much differently from, even as I said, when you have these conversations with the kids, they don't see themselves, as I said, when the starting point was, what do you want to become? When we in Jamaica, children, when they're on Susie, everybody want to be a lawyer, everybody want to be a doctor. Whether they can achieve it is another thing. But
Yeah,
there was an aspiration to be educated and use that as a way to break the social barrier.
that's true.
Here, people don't, the people within the working class aren't actively trying to break away from that. And I don't even think I would say that despite I'm not working in that scenario anymore, I don't believe that is has changed
Yeah,
in 50, 20 years. I don't think it has. I think it has been the way how those societies are set up. And every so often, you will see some kids break through that because some do,
yeah,
but they are not breaking through because the society as a whole is becoming more and more aware, per se.
yeah,
It is more a matter of it's happened because some rise to the top and they get through. But kids going into university and all that wasn't, they go to college and they sink in college, or and or one or two of them might become adults
yeah,
and then decide that, oh, the world needs educated people, let me go back to school. But
yeah,
the world is set up for them is that finish school, can't wait to finish school. I can get this, then I can go and work in a supermarket, I mean, I had parents even at that school who I remember doing a career talk with some kids, and they came in again, my group tutor
Tutor.
group,
Yeah.
and the mom was sitting there with the little girl. And when I was saying, so what do you want to do? We're doing that career setting, goal setting and stuff. I said,
Yeah.
what do you want to do when you grow up? Talking to this little girl in grade 9, I think, or she was going to grade 9. And she didn't answer because she didn't have an answer. Because sometimes kids don't have an answer at
Right,
that
right,
age.
right.
And
Yes.
it's fine. You can maybe talk to them and say, what do you like, subject-wise, blah, blah, blah. But mom just piped in and said, oh, but you always like to, like when we were in the supermarket, like the people were stacking the shelves and so on.
Yeah.
And that's what you like. And then she was like, yeah, I do like that. And this is mom talking to their child
Mm-hmm.
and saying that is a desirable outcome for, you know what I mean? So you end up with those kind of perpetuating behaviors where people, I don't think they mean bad. I think they just perform in the way that they think is the way it works. And the truth is the UK is set up in a way that if you earn a certain amount of money, like working class kind of money, you can still get by. The government might get you a place to live for your family. You
Mm-hmm.
will get enough benefits that even earning a fraction of what others earn, you could still live.
Yeah. And you're comfortable.
And your comfort level is the comfort level that you decide is a comfort level for your family, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
is maybe we have a place to sleep, we have kids, we can feed them, but maybe no more than that.
Wow.
So that's just interesting. I mean, that's my observations while being here. It's easier for me to say it because I didn't grow up in it,
Yeah.
you know.
It's the same thing happened to me in America here. When I came here, I realized that other people, and I don't mean to bash people, I'm not bashing people. It seemed like it's a form. They're formed in that way. And in schools, you try to influence them
Yeah, you try to
to
change it.
yeah, to look higher, to think of yourself in a different way, of a higher cause. You're here for a higher cause. And it's painstakingly very difficult to get students to think that, okay, I can do this thing beyond my community or beyond what I was thinking at first. It was very difficult. Just like you, it's still the case in many areas. And what I found out, and this probably could be another show that we looked at, is to find out the mindset of immigrants, preferably, I want to talk about Caribbean people, to look at how they perceive the world when they leave the country of a Jamaica or Trinidad or Barbados, Shirley Chisholm from Barbados or Stokely Carmichael from Trinidad, who became the first president of the Black Panther movement back in the 60s in America. If their mindset, when they talk to like African Americans and so on, what's the difference in the mindset of people coming from overseas, coming here, same complexion, and
A
the
different system.
yeah,
It's
it's a
a
dream.
system. You go to those guys in the 60s, but never forget Marcus Garvey, who came in the
And
20s.
yes, yes,
Marcus Garvey came in the 20s and formed the UNIA,
yes,
speaking to 100,000 people in Madison Square Garden, Times Square kind of thing,
yeah,
traveling the world, setting up one of the first the Black Star Liner shipping
yeah.
organization. So your question you're asking though is what I mean, the first black president of America it wasn't born on the mainland, so
Yeah.
doesn't come from rise from the South in that
Ah,
sense.
right, right.
Grew up in the kind of America that many Americans grew up in. He grew up in Hawaii, then he was living in Indonesia. He was aware that he was biracial. His father was a PhD graduate, you
Yeah,
know, from I think it might have been even Harvard or one of those
yeah, yeah,
universities. But
yes.
but went back minister in government in Kenya, those kind of things. And so in those house setup, you're gonna have aspirations to do well, right? Because your house is set up in a particular way.
Very good. Yes, yes.
So, I mean, Barack came through to America and never spoke for the South or apologized for, never tried to right the wrongs of, say, like when you're speaking, he never spoke like a Jesse Jackson or Al Shapiro or those kind of guys. He
Mm.
spoke like a guy who had a message for everyone. because he was biracial. His mother was white, his father was black. He can be any that he wants to be. He can be white, he can be black. He was
Yeah.
equally entitled to any of them,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so his message was never like, we need to break down these barriers and all that, or civil rights. It
Yeah.
was human rights, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That's very
So-
true.
And so
Yeah.
sometimes it's difficult to have aspirations, in my view, if the system itself can control that thinking. You know what I mean? And if you're part of the system, it's hard for you to see how to break out of the system. Like
Mm-hmm.
when Barack came into the mainland USA and went to like Chicago, he chose a different route to get into politics. He was into organizing. He wasn't trying to be a politician. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was still able to go to Harvard and do, editor for the review, those kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he didn't have the feeling like he needs to prove something, like a black person, the first black
Yeah.
person. He wasn't seeking that,
Or
you
try to
know.
get rid of something
So
through.
he was able to navigate the US system by simply not, because he was almost an immigrant in that regard. And
Yeah.
all of the dog whistle around him was around that. Like they knew he grew up in Indonesia. So he grew up in countries where they could see people of color in leadership roles. It wasn't seen as, he grew up in a settings. And then in Hawaii, there's a whole other set of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he wasn't growing up in worlds where he couldn't see people of color in leadership and being something. While Americans were living in a world that says that was a dream. It was never a reality that we could have.
Yeah.
And he was able to overtake all these guys. And when Barack came to the US, many of these guys rejected him.
Mm-hmm.
They
Bless you.
reject Many
Sure.
reject.
Mm-hmm.
They thought this guy is not one of us. It
Mm-hmm.
took a while. And when they saw the message that he had that was so inclusive of black and white, that's when they started to realize he's really. They said there's no red America, there's no blue America, it's just the United States of America, right? That's
Yeah.
the kind of message.
You're
While,
right. You're right.
so
The mindset is a big deal.
you
Is
have
a
to
big
be
part
out
of
of
it.
it. You have to be
And
out.
you have to give you credit for this too, because you mentioned the home structure and what you talk about around your table. It's
Yeah.
very, very important for people who are coming up. It's very true. And leading from or growing up from a place where you see people like yourself who are at a certain level, who are leading, then that has a massive impact on you. One of
Of course.
the type of conversations we have had with people in America is to say, you can do these things that we are doing. You can lead in certain areas that you're lead. And we get a lot of pushback from people saying, no, I don't think I should do this. I don't think I'll be effective at this and so on and so forth. When you as a person who actually you're from countries that have black leaders and people who journey from the bottom all the way up, even though we have classism and some level of racism.
There's some level of
Yeah,
racism and classism, but
yeah, yeah.
it's
One
not
thing though, we don't want to ignore
dogma. It's not
the
dogma. It's not dogma there. That's the thing. It's
no,
not
it's not.
Jamaica. You don't get the feeling like this barefoot boy down here will
Yeah.
not, it's not possible for him to be, or because you're born in, the ghetto, then
Mm-hmm.
you can't become. And there's no one there trying to hold you, people look up to kids who do well in school. There's a lot of that happening.
Yeah,
So, and what I mean is that the machinations of the system, they are perpetuated by the people within the system. They like the security of it. They keep their kids within the security of it. While whether we have enough mechanisms in place to help people to reach where they need to be is another thing.
yeah,
But I do believe that if you study hard and pass your PEP, then you go to get your CXCs, then you go to get your CSECs and get to university, you can move out of poverty. People
yeah,
believe, it's a genuine belief amongst people. And whether you say to your kid, the ambition, if you not try at school,
yeah,
because ambition is something that is expected that you have. So the society promotes that. Whether
yeah,
it whether it have the tools to make sure everybody can is another thing. But the society promotes that. I don't feel like when I'm in the UK, those kids that I taught, I'd say I taught those kind of kids for about 10 years.
Mm.
I don't feel like we were the ones in school who were saying aspirations. I don't think the parents were saying that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, wow. That's
Yeah,
something
we
that,
were trying to do that. We wanted kids to pass math and pass English, but that was a job. Maybe, to be fair, I worked in one school that was 90% Asian, and there's a different mindset there, to be fair.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
When you work in those schools that are deprived areas, underserved communities, they honestly aren't aspirational because they're taught to be like that. Like,
Yeah.
just be a plumber when you can. And to be fair, listen, the UK, if you're a plumber, you're really doing well.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
if you're
Yeah,
fixing electricity, you're making good money as well. So
yeah,
it's not like to bash those, right? There
yeah.
is a career that exists in that. But it still maybe will keep you within that social
Mhm.
class, unless you choose to get into business and set up your own business and hire people, then you might be able to break through.
Yeah.
But it's a sidestep away from education, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, which we believe is deep. We really need a deep level of understanding, and it's not for anybody's selfish mo social mobility. It's to understand how the world works and how you
Yeah, yeah.
navigate it.
I mean, in a Jamaican context, I mean, the tools, everyone, it's not possible based on how the system is set up for everyone to achieve because we don't have equity and access. They don't exist in the way that they should.
Yeah.
So, there are many kids that just don't have access to a good school or a good set of teachers,
Yeah.
right? And there are many, many kids who need remedial work but don't have that kind of facility happening in school. There are many kids who have bypassed early childhood education and enter school in grade 1. So they
Yeah.
haven't had formal education. There's still that. So
Yeah.
the equity and access piece is really fundamentally what inhibits our children's ability to be ready for the next stage of education and be
Yeah.
ready for the next stage and be ready for the next stage.
Mhm.
So in that setting, it's the social mobility is possible if the right kind of investment is made at the right stages
Mhm.
in education.
Yeah.
The flip side of that is that we're losing our best teachers as well. They're leaving. They just get to a point, not enough money, not enough motivation, and they go, let's go overseas. And
Yeah.
it's really moral. It's an immoral thing, and I'm a hypocrite here, but it's an immoral thing
Marga,
because
let's stop. We want to there's a show that I want us to do. And when we get back on here, the question we want to start with our next episode is should Jamaica in particular, I want to refer to the Caribbean, but should Jamaica focus on the preparation and formation of educators for export because it's an exporting country along with a few other
you're advocating for slavery again.
or because they're creating these
But
wonderful
any trade in this is going to be being paid for labor, right? So it's like a farmer setup you're thinking about.
kind of like, or the thing I'm looking at is what
Well, the
university.
question we can ask is the current migration of teachers
Yeah,
into the US, UK, Canada, and these countries to work another is a modern form of slavery, or is it still because ultimately we are providing a product that
yeah,
is created
yeah,
in the Caribbean at the cost of the Caribbean for free
yes.
to these countries for
All
free.
right, so let's
So when a
let
teacher jump on a plane and come to the UK and walk straight into a classroom, of course the government of the UK pay them,
but they don't
but
pay for the
but
preparation
they do not pay for the years of
years of
training and investment in
yeah.
a 100% subsidized education system up
Mm.
to compulsory education to grade 9, and then the other 2 years. Then if you go to university, you get an 80% subsidy from the government to be
Yeah,
educated. Then on the job training, right? The US government or the UK government get this teacher free, no
yeah,
cost, and you go straight in and you contribute to their education system, maybe more than even a trained US
of
citizen.
course, way
So
more.
The question is, and we have to be careful because we are treading into discussions about trading humans.
Yeah. That's
But we have to be careful about that. So the
yes.
question is, what kind of mechanism can be put in place in
Yes.
order to meet the need for people who have ambition to work in foreign countries and earn more money,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time compensate the Jamaican education system for training people. And
Yes.
that not
Yeah.
be a direct payment to the government per teacher, but a direct investment into our training system, like infrastructure, building up new colleges, or
Colleges,
in
yeah.
order to say, we know that you're serving. I mean, I saw our current Labour government, current election promises by one of the parties that they're going to recruit 6,500 teachers. Now, there are no teachers in the UK to recruit. It's not like they're sitting at home going, recruit me. These are
Yeah.
going to come from previously colonized countries because they need them to speak English, right?
Yes.
But no part of that deal is if we get the 6,500, we would then reciprocate in investment in those systems. It
No.
is, can we create enough of a honey trap for them to leave their country, which if they get up and leave, they leave in a gap in their system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But there's nothing that they go, for those 6,500 teachers, it's going to cost us maybe £1 million to train them. And
Yeah.
that £1 million needs to be reinvested in these poor countries.
Yes.
They can maybe continue to produce excess teachers to serve
And
everybody.
and
But
Barbara,
every,
you know what also too to add to that? The people, the voting the population, what do you call it? The electorate. They they actually probably love this because they are from these places and they would love for these teachers from their home countries who would come and be a part of their students' lives.
yeah,
They
of
would
course,
really,
they would want that. But
yeah,
the issue here is one of how do you frame this conversation? So we just talked about early childhood education, right?
yeah, yeah,
And I've just given you a way in which a government team could shape a policy that
yeah,
says, we're not selling people to you, but we certainly, and with open borders and globalization, we cannot stop people from coming to you. I mean, the
right,
government of Jamaica could easily solve this. Stop it. They can. They
mm,
can. They simply need to create a kind of arrangement that every teacher who migrates must have some form of a certificate that allows them to migrate and work, something like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
And
they
so if
can,
you're going to work in the UK education system, they cannot work without this certification,
mm.
almost like a release form to go, right? It's
All
not
right,
hard to put a policy
yeah,
like that in place. The issue, though, is to what end? It's going to be unpopular for most governments if they bring that in. But if you put a policy like that to say, as we migrate, how do we, and the government might say, oh, the teachers go overseas. And this is how the government of Jamaica looks at it. I go overseas, I send money back through remittances, which it means we have a way of collecting. We have a pseudo economy that's based on money not created here, but
mm-hmm,
contributing to our GDP.
mm-hmm,
You know? So you have a set of people in Jamaica who didn't work this extra 500 US, but it turns up in their home.
yeah,
But they didn't earn it by any economic movement. It's simply $500 that came to the country. And
mm-hmm,
then that $500 is used to consume,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And build houses, whatever. So the government can sit easy by not creating, not getting industries to create economic movement.
movement or opportunity,
Simply
but
need to make
yeah,
it easy for
right,
remittances to come because it is economic money because people go to the supermarket and buy food with it.
yeah,
And that generates the economy in its own way. So
yeah,
there's a difference. So if you have a remittance policy, so for them, they don't see any issue with Jamaicans being trained in Jamaica, migrating and working without any kind of reciprocity in the arrangement.
yeah,
Because in their view, those people are going to send money back. And if they're sending back 2 million US every year, that's how much is it the rate? 240 million Jamaican dollars, maybe.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That is
roughly,
coming into the economy that has nothing to do with the economy. the economy. It is simply money that's going to be pumped back in. And because the people who get this kind of money from overseas quite likely are at the lower end of the poverty of the economic spectrum, their propensity to consume, while it is normal for a working person to consume about 70 to 75% of their earnings and then have 25% for something, those people are spending 100%.
Yeah.
Saving it. They're spending all of it because normally that money is just to get them to up to a certain level of living, right? Barrel, it's paying for food, bus fare. So it drives the economy because without the remittance coming, these people would suffer more. They just wouldn't have enough income to live the life that they want. And the government would have to find a way to subsidize taxi fares, subsidize busing, subsidize lunch in order to allow kids to come to school, in a way. So
yeah.
the point is there's no need to have a reciprocal arrangement because remittance represents the reciprocal piece. Now, the government of Jamaica could easily have gotten into remittances by looking at it through money laundering and
Yes.
make the process far more complicated. And then people might not do it.
Yeah.
But they don't because it would affect their entire
They're
economic.
actually thinking, they're probably thinking just along the line as what you're doing because of certain conversations I've heard
Yeah, that's why
where
money
that
coming
is
back.
part. Yeah, yeah.
That's why
But
money
we're
coming
gonna
back.
finish it. We're gonna
Exactly.
finish it here. We're gonna pick up from here in terms of that topic, in terms of remittances and teachers leaving and preparation in our next episode. Thank you so much, Barka. Very, very as a very fruitful discussion and food for thought, as they would say. It's food for thought.
Yeah, man.
Thank you. Guys, everybody, this has been EduTalk. Thank you so much for viewing. Drop your comments below. You know where to find us. If you want to reach us, go on our website, edusolutionsintl at gmail.com. That's edusolutionsintl@gmail.com. Or just write to us straight in our domain at admin at educationsolutionsinternational.org. That's admin at educationsolutionsinternational.org. Or you can visit our website as edusolutionsintl.org. That edusolutionsintl.org. Or you can just Google us, Education Solutions International, and you'll see us pop up first thing because we're very popular online. All right, Bark, I can't tell you how much I love the discourse with you. Very, very rich.
No,
Very,
it's
very,
good. I love it.
yeah.
Let's keep going.
Yeah, yeah. All right, we'll talk later. Everybody, enjoy your week. It's almost the end of June. Enjoy your week. We'll see you next week.
Of course.